Hello. Well, today's message is about rest. And you would think that something like rest would come easy to a lot of us, especially because a lot of us might feel like we need rest, or we deserve rest, or we're chasing after rest. But what I've found in my experience is that sometimes, right on the cusp of achieving an opportunity for rest, we surrender rest to other things. And so, how might we get into a sort of motion that allows us to experience rest, right? And I apologize for that message, but somebody's online and they just said hello, so that's nice. I want to share with you a little bit about what brought me back to considering how I take rest seriously, how I use rest to benefit me, and then maybe share that with those of you that are interested so that maybe we can share conversations about maintaining our rest methods, encourage each other to rest, and things like that. So, during this morning's run, it's great how God speaks to us. Through my headphones, I heard this line from Lil Wayne coming through on his song Mirror. And he goes, with everything happening today, you don't know whether you're coming or going. But you think that you're on your way. Life lined up on the mirror, don't blow it. And basically, the song just kind of goes on to talk about the man in the mirror, which is me. In my example, when I'm listening to it, and the things I have to consider to make myself better and achieve those things that I want from my life. And so, what can we take from the Bible then and relate that back to our culture, right? And what we've been receiving and what Little Wayne was maybe talking about? Well, in the book of Genesis, there's a story that I was reading, and man, it hit me hard. The example that God gave. And what's funny about reading the Bible is if you haven't done so, give it a shot. There's some interesting stuff in there. If you're worried about it being boring, don't be. Because just like there's murder and deceit and disloyalty and sex and mystery and all that and the things that we like to watch sometimes on TV, there are those things in the Bible. So, not saying that those things are good, but those things are part of the story that is readily available and in your hands, a number of ways and a number of methods. And so, one of the examples from the Bible is this story out of the book of Genesis. It's chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. And it says, after 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven. And it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find nowhere to perch because there was water over all the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. And what that meant is that the dove found land and the waters had receded, and time for a new earth, right? So we're going to come back to this story here in just a bit. But I wanted to move on to talking about what Jesus gave us an example of. And that's even him being as strong as he was and as connected as he was with the people and as compassionate as he was. That's what I take from the New Testament mostly, and I thank God for it, is the way that it illustrates God's compassion for the people. I mean, he struggled in giving his power away to heal and to let people take refuge in him. And I think that's amazing. And if you read certain portions of the Bible, maybe you're going to take that as well. But that's what I take, right? And in addition to the sacrifice that freed me from the law of sin and death, I take this compassion, right? But in the book of Luke, in chapter 5, verse 16, Luke tells us, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And so from that, I want to take that word often. And then I want to take that word withdrew. And so I think it's important that we discipline ourselves to withdraw often to seek our rest. And it's important for me. I have things that I used to do that I don't do anymore. And I want to do. And it's funny because Paul has a story in the Bible about that. But I can discipline myself. I can get myself back to doing it. But it's going to be hard, right? And that's why it takes discipline. And it's funny how we get back to this idea of rest being hard. And so back to the story about the raven, right? If we take this story at the very beginning of when I began to tell it, it speaks of a raven and a dove. And the example it gives, it says that Noah sent out a raven and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. And I think that we can miss what happens here because that's a clear difference from what happened with the dove. Because when the dove can find nowhere to perch because there was water over all the surface of the earth, it returned to Noah in the ark, right? And then Noah waited a few days and sent it out, and the olive branch in the mouth and the water is gone, right? And then that's a great story. But here the comparison that I'm trying to make is between the way the two birds worked. And where one just continued until the waters had receded, the other looked for and found rest in the person that had sent him out. And so I think that sometimes, and this is even a message to those of you that share your testimony and that preach, my ministers and my leaders out there who God has ordained and allowed you to be leaders in the faith. Sometimes we need to return to the person that gives us rest and protection, the way that Noah had given rest and protection to the bird during the floods. And so I want to conclude with what Daniel says in chapter 12, verse 13. And it says, as for you, go your way till the end. You will rest. And then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. So through the rest, we can actually earn what it is that we're striving so hard after. And I think that's a wonderful message that God has decided to share with us. And I hope that you can use it some way to benefit you. I want to remind you to visit USMC Counselor for other messages that may be out there. We have a new shirt on our website. If you want to go ahead and check that out, that's usmcounselor.org. And more than anything, I hope you're encouraged, and I hope that maybe we can share out a little bit about how rest is important to what we do. I hope that you're well. I hope that you're living well, and I hope that you can be well.